Okay, welcome everyone to the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, a compensatory counter-racist code by Neely Fuller Jr. This is our study on politics, people relations, which is area 6 of the 9 people activities. We're covering pages 216 through 230. Getting started, I'm going to discuss and share something involving the very start of the pages we covered, which is something really interesting to say the least. So, and also for our new participants, feel free to answer any of the questions that are read from this book, but um, you do not need to. We have questions that we will be asking directly towards you once we get to that section. Um, but feel free if you'd like to answer any of the questions that this text poses. So on page 216, the code states, question, is it correct to help a white person to adopt a non-white child? Um, Answer, no, because within the system of white supremacy, all non-white people have been so-called adopted by white people. They are adopted for the basic purpose of providing closer contact with one or more white people while remaining directly or indirectly subject to and victims of white supremacy racism. Those individual white people who prefer to pick and choose a specific non-white person as so-called property should not do so through a so-called adoptive process. If a white person wants to be constructive help to a non-white person on a personal level, which is in quotations, he or she can best do so by promoting a quality relationship with all non-white people in a manner that will aid in the process of ending the system of white supremacy. It is better that white people work to end the system of white supremacy rather than to promote confusion by adoptive parenting of non-white people on the basis of personal choice. These adoptions by white people do nothing to help end the system of white supremacy racism. It is the system that produces and helps promote much confusion and does not allow a non-white person to be constructively adopted by any person, white or non-white. The system of white supremacy only allows a non-white person to function as a servant to and as a victim of white supremacy. So when I read this, I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And prior to reading this, I always was very suspicious of white people adopting non-white child children, especially when I find pictures of white people in Africa like holding naked babies like they're pets or something. It just reminds me of the system that we live in, and I also think it's very dangerous for non-white children to grow up in the homes of racist suspects, which is a term used to describe every white person who is able to practice racism, white supremacy. And case in point, how dangerous it can be, not only because it causes confusion, because I highly doubt a white parent is going to tell their offspring, I mean, the adopted non-white child, the truth about the system they live in, the truth about their mistreatment. And I doubt any adoptive parent is working 24/7 to produce justice. So I don't see much constructive value in it. And just to show how dangerous it is, I believe these are, I could be incorrect. I don't know if this is also a daughter, but this white female adopted a ton of black non-white children, and many of them, I don't know how many were killed, but I believe the
They
one.
were all they were all killed. All the pictures, all the kids in this picture. Yeah, like what Dan said, they were a lesbian couple and they adopted black children and often posted about how these children would defecate on the walls and all of this stuff, basically to make them seem like they were white saviors of these children, but they were actually abusing them. And there were white neighbors who saw these kids being abused and didn't do anything. And then this woman ended up running her car off of, I think, just like a freeway bridge and killing all of the children and her partner.
Mm. See the dangers of white people adopting black children, because this just causes a lot of confusion. And this is a very famous picture. And I guess many people believe this to be like a beautiful moment, and like perhaps this black child is this victim of racism is like crying tears of joy. But when I look at this, I don't see any joy in this victim's eyes. I don't. I see a person being mistreated, and this just looks incorrect to me. I may be in error, but just one of the many examples of the confusion, death, and the chaos white people adopting non-white children can create and does create 24/7. So it is best correct that that practice be stopped, and everyone attempting or thinking about adopting black children, if they're white, just understand that is very incorrect. And I'll leave it there to see if anyone has any comments about this section, any notes they'd like to share from this section.
I wanted to comment on this particular topic of white adoption. Can you tell me first what page that you found that on? Reading from?
216.
Yeah, I would add that this greatly adds to the confusion, because not only does it not expose the system of racism, white supremacy, it can confuse others to think that while their parents are unable to provide for the children because of the system, that nothing is not that it's not the system's fault, rather it is put on the parents who are unable to take care of those children. So we have these white people who have all the resources coming to take the children away, coming to adopt these children, and I guess perform what they would call acts of kindness. But in the long run, that doesn't do anything to necessarily remediate the system or even give anybody a reason to analyze the system. I've seen a number of examples, not only most of the ones that I do have are more high profile, I guess, celebrities. I think of the case in particular of I I don't know if it's Charlie Theron or whatever her name is, but the white woman raising the trans son. I think about that one a lot. I think also about not too long ago, there was I believe a film director who had also adopted a black child, and just recently came out that she was being sexually abused by her parent. So just some of those things pop up and happen. Um, those are often things that I think about in particular when it comes to white adoption. I also think about Angelina Jolie and the numerous non-white children that she and her husband adopted. Once again, not really doing much to produce justice. Rather, they're adopting these children, and by doing that, they're not shedding light on the system, right? They're just kind of saying, "Oh, we're going to help these children," but nobody analyzes why these children need to be adopted in the first place. Is what I'm trying to get at.
Can I go? Oh, sorry, Miss Williams has her hand raised. I'll go after her.
Yeah, Ms. Williams, please.
This is very tragic. It's bad enough or tragic enough that these two women, lesbians, decided this is what they wanted to do. But it appears to me, if I'm looking at this correctly, it looks like there is 2 boys and 2 girls there. Is that correct? The children.
I believe it's 3 boys and 1 girl.
Oh, it's a girl.
I think in this picture it is 2 girls and 2 boys, but I think they had about 6 kids that they had adopted.
Oh, okay. But even just looking at that, with the couple being lesbian, that's enough confusion within themselves, right? And they're free to do whatever they want because they are adults. But what they're missing is that when you bring a child into a situation like that, they're already missing their parents because they do have parents. They do. For whatever reason, they're not in the picture. And usually what happens in these situations that these children, once they're adopted, they're totally cut away from their probably any contact. Very few of them want them to have contact with their real parents. But I'm looking at the sexual confusion that these children will have. The 2 boys will be confused. The 2 girls will be confused and trying to figure out what is going on. But yet these people saying that they love these children, right? And this is one of the reasons why they adopt them. But a lot of time when we look at the system and what it's doing to our children, we realize this is not love. What this is more of a adopting a pet syndrome, no different, because they love their pets. And for some reason, it appears that they tend to reach out to Black children and add them along with the confusion as pets. And it just breaks my heart to just realize these children didn't ask for this. They're thinking they're coming to a better life and to have something better in life than what they already had. But then they come into a situation where they're mistreated even more than they were when they had to leave their particular home. So it's just so sad, but it's too much confusion going on there. Too much. I mute my mic.
I believe too, Miss Williams, that their mother was I think abusing drugs, and so CPS could have given them to their aunt, who was a good enough caretaker for the children, but I think she missed some sort of meeting or something very inconsequential, and they decided to give them to this these 2 white women instead, when their aunt was alive and they have other family that's alive too. But I also wanted to add to the section about adopting white children. I thought that section was really interesting, especially because I remember during the Korean and Vietnam War, they would adopt a lot of the kids and bring them from overseas here. And to add on to the confusion, when a lot of those, they were adopted by white people. And then when a lot of those kids became 18, they didn't actually have US citizenship. So some of them potentially were gonna get deported and things like that. And this has been a continuing ongoing thing where people adopted overseas by white people don't actually have citizenship in the US. And I also think it's interesting in the context of just I forgot, I lost my train of thought, but in the context of Christianity, I noticed a lot of white missionary type people go to these countries and adopt, they always adopt like Korean or Black children. I think it's very interesting. Like, and it's supposed to be this like sign of like benevolence, but really it's just like further indoctrinating these kids into like confusion. Because now, like what Miss Williams said, they're confused. They're leaving their home country already, and now they're like living with these white people. That's adding more to the confusion, on top of the fact that they're coming from a war-torn country, so who knows the type of trauma they've seen. So
Woody Allen and his white partner, ton of non-white children classified as Asian, and they just had a yeah. I watched some of that documentary, and it was just really really incorrect. What Woody Allen, what I believe he was doing with those children, and just goes to show you that in a system of racism, white supremacy, I do not believe white people care about children because a system of justice would be here already. Um, any more comments about this section?
Yeah, I'll go. I that's interesting that this is brought up because I actually it was maybe about a year ago or so, or when the pandemic first started, and they had that weird clip of Madonna on TV. I noticed that she was talking about how we're all going down or something weird in a bathtub with rose petals, and they were I noticed that she had adopted some Black children, and I thought that that was it was kind of how do you say it, unsettling to me, because first of all, I would all of the things that I've heard right now were a lot of the things that went through my mind, and also just at a glance, the somebody that say that, you know, that white with Black children, we know, you know, the people say they don't see color or whatever, but when those children go out with that person, people do see color, and people do know that these children are probably adopted, that this isn't the real mother or the real father of the kids, and it already creates a stigma just for people to see, well, my family looks like me, and you know their family doesn't really look anything like them, so obviously they're adopted. And you know it's too many. I feel like it would be very awkward and confusing for the child to explain over and over again, that's not my real mom, that's my adoptive mom. Whereas if the child looked similar to, I mean, when they're getting adopted, they would get asked less, at least from people I've known. If someone adopts them that is in their family, or someone adopts them that it resembles them, it is easier not only to raise the children because there's generally, um, what do you call it, culture that those children, you know, probably had been used to before something happened, but also the idea that people do judge children by if they have a father in their life or not, if they have their real parents or not. And not only does it just not seem like the ideal situation for these children as far as the living unit, but just the appearances, I feel like the children are set up to be discriminated against. I don't know if they would completely understand that. And then the male and the female role model, if they're looking at role models that don't look like them. I've seen a lot with people, dissociative identity disorder, where you see a lot of these people wearing like contacts or trying to be a gender that they're not, or any number of things. All seems to go back to, well, I don't really know who I am, and what easier way to confuse a child but to put them next to people that are their caregivers, that look nothing like them, act nothing like them, and I would say do not have the full ability to teach those children what they need to survive in the system of white supremacy. As I mean, they know how to survive, but can a white person really teach a Black person how to survive in the system of white supremacy? I mean, obviously, they can't teach someone to survive if they I mean, they're rescuing people that can't survive, so they're already in a bad position because they're not surviving. You can't teach someone how to survive by taking their power away. And when you take a child on from another parent who couldn't, um, even being the same race, there's still power that's taken away. But I believe that the different race just creates more confusion in the system of white supremacy and results in a lot of bullying and misinformation given to the child, as things like adoption and foster care are complicated anyway. That's my take on it.
Well said, Miss Sandra. It brings me to the the reality that 100. I would suspect, and I would think logic will lead us to understanding that 100% of circumstances that create children who so-called need to be adopted are circumstances that come from the system of racism and white supremacy. What I mean is that children are taken out of home, for example, because the attempted parent so-called can't take care of them. 100% of the time, they can't take care of them because of circumstances given to them by being dominated by the system of white supremacy, whether that's in the area of economics, by having very little time and energy to provide proper shelter and care for the offspring. So they create these situations that allow non-white children to be taken away, and then they take the children away and they use the children for purposes as such as sex, for evolved pets. You know, when a dog is not enough, they need something that could give them more happy feelings or whatever. It just, and all in all, it just causes confusion and death and chaos. As um I only know one of the victims' names, as Devontae Hart and his fellow victims can show us. Death, confusion, and chaos is what this behavior does. And any more comments on this?
I want to drop one more thing in right quick.
Oh, please do.
I have forgot about these people who are foster parents. And see, that just goes to show you the system of racism, white supremacy. In order to be a foster parent, you have an extensive background that they have to do on you. So how is these white people flipping through the cracks that most times turn out to be crazy, lunatic, sex crazed people that the government or the state decides to pay these people to care for children, and they get paid pretty nicely because that's why they get over four, because they want to get paid real good. Then they have all kind of benefits where the children for their clothing, different things like that they're helping provide. But the background checks, what is going on, that people are passing these background checks and these people are not finding out these people crazy as Bessie bugs and have all these sexual fetishes. But when it comes to Black people trying to adopt, they take us through the ringers, and we got to have so much money, we got to make this, that, and the other. And they don't want to give them all the resources that they give these white families to take care of these children. But I was just looking at the fact, paid to abuse children. Now that's horrible. Paid to abuse. So it goes back to what we were talking before about they thrive, racist, white supremacist people, they thrive off of our pain and our suffering. Instead of helping, they're doing more abusing. I mute my mic.
Can I talk real quick? 0526.
Oh, you don't have to ask. Please do.
Okay, cool. Yeah. First of all, I just want to thank y'all for still like maintaining a warm and welcoming embrace for me. I know there's a lot that the white community can make up for, or should make up for, and this is just one of many examples. But I am curious, you know, obviously I'm a person, I'm capable of helping in some way, somehow. So instead of actually commenting, I would just like to ask y'all, what are one or two things, big or small, that I could do to help just elevate the situation? I guess you can say, like, generally, specifically. Go for it.
I would say that's a really great question. Let's save it for when we get to the that portion. But thank you for commenting, and thank you
Yeah.
for sticking with us, because this is not for the week. What we're doing here, not for the week. Um, oh yeah, I just want to just clarify the that there was 6 victims here by the name of Marcus, Hannah, Jeremiah, Abigail, Sierra, and Devontae. These are the 6 victims. And Miss Williams was saying how it's so hard for Black people, non-white people, to adopt offspring. I mean, to adopt children. And I'm sure she's very correct. And I will also suspect that they want non-white people to be so-called married, because that's supposed to prove something, I guess. But I don't believe that these 2 females were married and they were able to adopt 6 children. Very suspicious. But if you understand race and white supremacy, you will understand exactly how these things happen and will continue to happen until we produce a product called justice. Um, Anyone like to comment? I think what I'm gonna read but what I'm gonna read next is maybe a somewhat answer to the question asked by Mr. Anthony. Let me get what I want to get on the screen really quickly. Okay, so on oh, Mr. Williams, I mean Mr. Edward Williams, were you gonna comment? I thought I heard your voice a second ago.
Oh, no, sir.
All right,
No, sir.
epic. Okay, so on page, actually, I want to make a comment about family. Like, what actually is a family? Um, you know, my so-called family, I prefer to use the term victim unit or cell unit. Um, they have never functioned as any sort of family that I would call like a so-called loving, caring family. It's always been not as it should be due to the system of racism. And I think it's because we have our family, our attempted family, didn't have a code. And I really appreciate this so-called family that we could begin to practice. It's in from 216 to 217 it states, during the existence of white supremacy, do not try to participate in a so-called family in a manner that is so-called traditional, emotional, social. Instead, try to interact with each other in a manner that is more like a logical business counter-war association. This means that you and every member interact with each other in a manner designed, codified best to promote the guarantee that no person is mistreated, and the guarantee that the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Generally, this also means that you and the other members will, in most of your interactions, minimize conflict with each other by minimizing all unnecessary and or non-constructive contact. Note, the aforementioned compensatory victim unit family network arrangement is probably the best and correct for most non-white people during the counter-racist counter-war to replace the system of white supremacy racism with the system of justice balance between people. Now I know if I had this piece of code when I was much younger, me and my identical twin brother would have spent a lot less time trying to harm and mistreat and kill each other, and probably spent a lot more time trying to help each other constructively. So this is, I think, if a lot of now people had this access to this code or began to practice this code, we could do a huge blow to the system of white supremacy, because in so many black the non-white victim units are just in utter disarray because they are not aware that there is a war being waged against them. Therefore, those units exist, and those units exist a bunch of conflict, and conflict among non-white people should not happen while there's an actual war being waged against us by white people who choose to practice white supremacy. If anyone would like to comment, share any insight before I continue? Hmm. Alrighty. So another
Oh,
part.
Helen, did you want to go? I think Helen unmuted.
Yes,
Oh,
hello, can I be heard?
yes, ma'am.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, what you just read, I read it as well. I have the book as well. And what you just read, it amazes me. Well, it kind of frustrates me when I see on the news that it was a party or a barbecue and there's a shootout. I'm like, why do we keep getting together and then turn around and have these shootouts, or it's a fight, someone's killed? And that's what that reminds me of. And I just wish that we would stop. Or when we do come together, I wish that we would come together and it would be more constructive, like sit down and solve problems, find out, okay, what does so and so need? What does, who needs employment? Oh, my job is hiring, exchange information, but instead it's drinking or, loud music and, and, whatever else. And it always ends kind of deadly. That's all. I mute my mic.
Well
Yeah,
said.
I agree, Helen, and especially the part about making sure like those who need the most help like receive the most help. I don't think a lot of families or so-called families even try to do that. I feel like a lot of times the person who needs the most help ends up being seen as like an, I guess to use the word like an outcast, or someone like people don't want to provide that sense of help to them, and so that person is just cast off. And I think it's like really important to understand that your survival unit, your family is not really functioning if, people who need the most help are not receiving it.
Exactly. We've just been trained to function against one another. We come together in so-called gatherings and gossip and mistreat one another and call it fun, or just messing around, when it's just symptoms of how we've been trained to be totally destructive and non-constructive by racist man, racist woman, racist child collectively. Um, Another interesting part from the code from 217, it states, bum, 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 interactions with white people in general. Question: should a non-white person make a deliberate effort to interact with white people, and if so, how? Answer: yes. It is the duty of every non-white person to make a maximum effort to try to establish the quality relationship, and that's in quotations, with every white person. The quality relationship must be specifically designed to produce a maximum constructive result in every area of activity. The quality relationship must be achieved by each non white person putting to use a code of thought, speech, and action that is specifically designed to produce a maximum constructive result in everything that a non white person says and does. in all of his or her interactions with all white people. Question: what is the one thing politically that you have most in common with both the white people and the non-white people of the known universe? Answer: failure to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. So that is what we have in common. Non-whites and white people, we have both failed utterly to produce justice. And I believe it's somewhere in the code. I just may be somewhere else, but I believe the reason is being is because the white people who have the power to produce justice do not have the will, and the white people and the non-white people who have the will to produce justice do not have the power. So while we have both failed to solve the problem, very, very different reasons, it seems. Um, that may be an interesting question that may be posed by that later in a discussion. But would anyone like to comment, um, share some notes, insight?
This part about the quality relationship was very interesting, very insightful. Over learning about code and just learning about different works, they often speak about, for instance, Dr. Francis Cress Wilson talks about not, it's useless and kind of stupid to hate white people because of racism. It's like a chess game and we're just being dominated. So in my interactions with white people, as I've come to understand, as I started to learn about racism and white supremacy, I would say my interactions with white people definitely became limited. I would consider myself being I don't want to say courteous, but I would see white people walking around and I would say hello, even if they didn't acknowledge me or not. But I don't know if that was part of my conditioning or my training to, always try and please white people, do my best to make white people feel comfortable around me. So when I began learning about racism and white supremacy more in the system and how it is, what it is and how it works, I started to do less of that. I'm not really sure why. I just felt that it was, I guess, it was my attempt to recondition and retrain myself. I don't always have to say hello to white people to make them feel comfortable. I don't always have to smile at them when I'm walking by them to make them feel comfortable. So, reading this section, it definitely gave me some guidance on how to better interact with white people as we try to establish that quality relationship with them and the quality relationship with each other. I definitely wouldn't say I'm discourteous towards white people, but yeah, I wouldn't say I'm discourteous to them, but I will. This is a better general idea of how to interact with them.
Thank you for that.
My name is David, and I know Swashan personally. I have not.
David,
I was not here for the introductions.
David, can you call me 0526, please? Thank you.
Oh, sorry about that. 0526.
It's all right.
Yeah. I did not know that. Okay, awkward. So I wanted to say that I have a really similar experience as to what you were saying. How can I pronounce your name? Is it Kweku?
Kwaku?
Kweku. Kind of like reversed, where it's like, how you felt that, or you had this sense of obligation or conditioning to where you had to greet somebody or approach somebody in a way that made them feel comfortable just because that's just, I guess, somehow you were conditioned to do that. I guess that's something I not conditioned, but I always imagined that in a society like where it's like there's too many white people and you see, somebody that is non-white, that it is my job to try to help ensure that they're welcomed by greeting them. And that's like that sounds like such like a minimalist thing to do, but like that's like one thing that I do when I see somebody that is non-white in a white majority area location. So that's what I wanted to say. I just wanted to say that I had like a similar experience. Not that it's the same thing, but you know, my reason is a bit different from what your reasoning is, but never mind. Okay, sorry.
No, thanks for sharing, Mr. David. That is very insightful. Would anyone like to share and appreciate all the new participants? We will be getting to the questions shortly.
I have the opposite issue where if I'm in a space where it's a lot of white people, I'm not as open to be high or eye contact or anything. It always makes me feel like I'm out of place. So it's kind of hard to, if somebody does tell me hi, I'm not type to be like run away. I'm gonna say hi, but it just puts me in a uncomfortable position of what to do and how to go about it in that way, because I'm not caring to make you feel comfortable if only if it has to do like with my job. But I'm the most uncomfortable in that position, if that makes sense.
Well said. And
No,
I think that is because we're not on this planet to make each other feel comfortable. We're on this planet to produce a product called justice. And the code states on 217, when talking to any people, including suspected white supremacist racists, do not be harsh, vulgar, or mean spirited. Be businesslike, cordial, courteous, and pleasant in manner. Explanation: in general conversation, there is no constructive reason for any people in the known universe to talk to any people in any way other than the affirmation. Not because we're on this planet to be nice, just because logically it makes more sense to attempt to do the aforementioned. And in a system where non-white people are just terrorized 24/7 by white people in all 9 areas of people activity, um, it makes so much sense, Carice, for you to feel uncomfortable around white people. I'm sure in our ancestral line, ours in particularly, because we are so-called descendants of slavery. But yeah, so not only how do we live in a system of white supremacy, but we come from a line that has experienced a very different brand of terror. So it makes so much sense. So that could either be something that um, that it could mean a lot of things. So totally different from what any white person could experience. I am certain.
I
Again,
wanted to quickly. Oh, sorry for cutting you off. I'll let you finish, then let me know when.
yeah. If no one else has a comment, feel free.
Yeah, I was gonna say, after reflecting more on my comment about wanting to make somebody feel more comfortable, I think that maybe there's a more selfish reason why I do this. Now, like the more I think about it, I feel embarrassed saying this, but I'm trying to be as self-aware as I can. But perhaps I'm just more interested in doing this because I want to be seen as somebody that's cool in the eyes of somebody that's not white.
Mm. Yeah, I'm
Can
sure.
I ask a question? Are we
I just want to read this one part, but yeah, at least before we get to the questions, because I think it's really insightful, and I think it's a good segue into the intentional questions to the new participants. Is that fine, Miss Ash, or would you like to ask the question?
That's good with me.
Okay. So if no one has any more comments before on page 217, I would like to get us started in the questions part. Um, any comments
I
about?
just wanted to read off this one part on T17 on it says question, what is one thing politically in quotation marks that you have most in common with both the white people and the non-white people of the known universe? Answer, failure to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. I wanted to read that. I guess this is one way that one thing we have in common, or most in common, like you said, with white people in the known universe. Failure to replace the system of white supremacy, which is racism, with the system of justice. I'll fault for that.
Agreed. Well said. I think should be read again, honestly, because it's true. Um, Complete failure to produce a system of justice. Um, so I'm just going to read this part because I think it's really makes a lot of sense. Um, because I'm not here because I hate the system of white supremacy, because I hate white people. I'm here because I understand justice would be better than what we currently have. So I don't waste my time thinking, I waste my energy hating anyone. I just understand what should be here and do my best to produce it. And I hope that that mentality can be propagated um, throughout the planet so we can really get some justice on planet Earth. But the code states, not but the code states, do not speak or act in such manner as to promote hatred of white people. Explanation: white people are people. Generally speaking, they are smart people. They are industrious people. They are people who question, explore, examine, and experiment. They are great arrangers. They study everything in great detail. They are great builders. Their knowledge and understanding is extensive in all areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war slash counter war. White people are, generally speaking, very attractive and exceedingly fascinating in both appearance and performance. They are capable of great compassion or great fury. They clearly display the possible capacity for unmatched humanitarian accomplishment. However, as people who have chosen to be racist, white supremacists, large numbers of them have utilized their intellect to practice deceit and violence on a scale that has made falsehood and injustice and incorrectness a normal condition and a basic requirement for their existence. Still, it is incorrect to hate white people who practice white supremacy, as it is to hate any people anywhere. Hatred of any purpose serves no constructive purpose. Hatred of any person serves no constructive purpose, nor is it necessary to devote the power of the mind to a hatred of any person, place, thing, or idea. It is correct, however, to oppose falsehood, injustice, and incorrectness, particularly when expressed in such a massive and destructive form as racism, white supremacy. Think, you could have been born as the person that you hate. Think, you could become very much like the person you hate. So, very important to understand that it's non-constructive to hate one another. We don't even have to like each other to produce justice. We just have to understand its importance. So that was all I had to share before the questions portion. If anyone would like to comment on what was read just now, please be my um, please share. or we could get started with Ash's first question.
Oh, hi. I appreciate David for your honesty. I wanted to just ask a follow-up question about what you were saying. When you said something about wanting to appear a type of way, cool. I was wondering like what specific like characteristics or traits would you I guess associate with that idea of like how like in terms of how you act when around non-white people?
Yeah. So I guess so. I'm gonna give a heads up, and this is probably an excuse already that I might have trouble putting things together. I had my last chemo infusion, and so I have like some chemo brain. So if I have some issues making sentences and like making sense, I am so sorry about that. So I will do my best to construct a, a sound, sentence. Um, so you can hear me, right? Yes. Okay. Perfect. So my idea of what is cool is, I think my perspective on attention from white to non-white, I feel that non-whites, I feel so bad saying this. I feel like non-whites are probably more disregarded or ignored in society. Okay, so I have this initial thought, and that by offering my attention, by not ignoring as I perceive that a lot of other white people do, or supremacists do, or just whites in general, I feel that, well, hey, this person is not the same as this person, this asshole, and that's it. And just because I feel like if somebody had given me attention, I would respect that person, just like perhaps I think I get respect if I do something specific, do something like that. Can you wait? Am I mute? I'm not muted, right?
No, we can hear you.
And I'm sorry again.
Yeah,
If it doesn't make sense. And it sounded, the more like when I talk, when I hear myself talk, it sounds so fucking bullshit. And I really apologize how horrible that sounds. That fucking sounded so fucking garbage that I wanted to.
Can you trim down on the swearing, please?
I'm sorry. I am just that disgusted with what came out of my mouth. That is the honest truth.
Okay. Okay. There may be other questions, but I forgot to ask the really important question to get us all started. To the new participants, Mr. Barron, Mr. David, are you a white person? That is the first question.
David, yes, I am a white person.
That's a really good question, Twa. And I was actually
05.
this. Do you want to say some more stuff, David?
That wasn't me. I was just saying 05.
Oh, 05. Yeah, 05. What's up, man? So yeah. Anyway, this clicked in my mind during this meeting. White supremacy is like kind of stupid, or really stupid, because it's like whiteness is it's a social concept, right? Like no one is truly white, right? Like it's like no one is like has the skin color of copy paper. Like, to say, okay, whiteness is like amazing, whiteness is like better than everything else, you have to be white in order to be acceptable. That ends up failing everyone. I cannot stress this enough, because no one is 100% pure thoroughly like white or conforms to with the idea of whiteness. And you'll see this even in white supremacy groups. Like I can imagine folks having contests in their inner circles, like who's more of a white supremacist, who's the whitest of us all, and pushing folks out who are less white of probably the whitest collection of people you can find on earth. Anyway, whiteness is not real. And so white supremacy is something that ends up, I feel like, pushing down all people. And the only way to try to, I guess, like wiggle your way out of a white supremacist system is by claiming you're white. And you're claiming to be something that's just not like physically real. And so in a way, I do, I guess, say I'm white because I benefit from the system of white supremacy. But another way, I don't really identify as white because I don't think whiteness is a real thing.
Understood. All of these races are artificial, but in a system of racism and white supremacy, unfortunately, white people who practice racism have made white very, very real. And although it may have no genetic bearing, for some particular reason, people who classify themselves as white have chosen to maintain and refine this system for centuries. So I totally understand what you're saying, and thanks for answering the question. But just so I'm totally clear, you did say you're a white person, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do I also mention that I'm Jewish? Is that a race also?
No, sir.
Okay.
I believe you.
I take it back. I'm not Jewish.
Well, thanks for answering the question as well, Mr. David. So a question. Let me see what questions I. This is the question portion, and I will like everyone to remember that the system of racism and white supremacy is mostly maintained and refined through deceit, deception, lies, and confusion. So it's really important for everyone to be totally honest with their answers and sharing the truth the best way you know how. So I'd like to get us started. One of the first questions I have is number 38. Um, and the answer to this question is for, of course, the white people. Um, and the question is, what are the things that the smartest and most powerful white people do that non-white people should do, and how should non-white people do it in regards to all areas of activity?
I guess I could easily say there is no difference. I think that perhaps white people are better at manipulating society. That's my answer.
Wait, say again.
I said white people are probably better at manipulating society.
So would you suggest that non-white people get better at manipulating society?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is something that I think white people do great that non-whites should also try to.
Let me ask the question again. Maybe things were lost in translation. But the question is, what are the things that the smartest and most powerful white people do that non-white people should do? And how should non-white people do it in regards to our areas of activity?
Can I chime in real quick, 05?
Oh, if you would like to answer the question, please do. And David, if you'd like to attempt afterward.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 100%. So I'm gonna bend my understanding of this a little bit. I'm not gonna go with like on paper the smartest, like most powerful, like Jeff Bezos or, Fortune 500 folks. I'm going to say the truly smartest and most powerful white people are the ones who, first of all, reject their whiteness and solely focus on bringing humanity together. They're very rare, but I think that there are folks out there who, practice that I think everyone can learn from. Yeah.
I think that was an excellent answer. I think that there is no better answer than that, really.
Thank you.
Interesting. Mr. Silent Warriors, he had a hand raised. If you'd like to ask a question.
I'll pass on that and continue to listen.
Alrighty.
If the smartest, most powerful white people are the white people who are trying to bring everybody together, whatever that means, why isn't it happening?
It's hard.
Well, I think you have I guess maybe I could classify somebody else as being smart, or just because somebody's smart doesn't mean that they have, that edge, that because you have a vast majority of like really stupid people that don't listen and that don't also agree with their insight. And the simple thing is, just because you have one smart guy saying something that's ingenious, like say Dr. Fauci, encouraging people to wear masks, just because he's, this is something easy to do, you have so many people that are so opposed to that because they believe that that's not correct and that their way is better. And unfortunately, you have a lot of people that have this kind of mindset when it comes to, becoming more self-aware of the advantages that they have and what should be done to create more of a balance. They don't, I don't know how to explain it. It's people that don't listen. That's it.
Okay, so the question was, if the smartest, most powerful white people
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
are the white people who are trying to bring everyone together, whatever that means, why isn't it happening?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Ed. Honestly, it's for a few reasons. I'm not saying that there exists a white person who's the perfect embodiment of peace, love, and kindness, because if there were, then obviously we would see everyone, because the perfect embodiment of those attributes would be so powerful enough. Basically, they're like God, right? They could just bring everyone together. So no one's perfect, really. But I could say that I'm certainly trying to get there. Although my the results of my efforts, like I can't say that they're concrete, or I can't like show you a tally chart of like the number of people that I've brought together personally. But I'm just saying, like, from if you can just imagine, if there's anyone to look up to, white, black, whatever, they would embody those characteristics. And so if you're attracted to power or intelligence, if powerful and intelligent people are people you look up to, be wise with how you define that power and intelligence, and make sure that's their love, peace, and decision to abide by kindness. That is a reflection of their power and intelligence, not necessarily their attraction to money or what's the word? Totalitarian, like dictatorial rule, or dictatorial rule, or everything else that you see happening, unfortunately, as a result of, you know, white influences like colonialism. So, yeah.
I also think that maybe I should back up and say perhaps, you know, the most powerful white person is not somebody that is pro-humanity. You know,
And
I don't know who this person is, and if you have somebody that is not for that mission, you're not going to have the success that you would have if you had somebody that was just as powerful but had that mission. So that's a response, I guess.
another part of the question was, what should non-white people do that the most powerful white people are doing? If you two could chime in on that aspect of the question as well.
There's like 3 people with their hand raised, but just to let you know, my thing won't let me raise my hand. I've been looking for it for the past 20 minutes, but I'll go after the people with their hand raised.
Okay, Mr. David, Mr. Anthony, would you like to attempt to answer that portion of the question?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like I don't think anything would want to be mimicked or mirrored that the most powerful white people are doing, because nothing, you know, if you want to try to do something good, like if nothing is happening, if no changes, if no justice is being brought up by the current most powerful white person now, then there's nothing that you'd want to mirror. You know, that's.
Yeah, I gotta bounce real quick because I have class 05. But if I can stress anything, it's to be very, very, very careful with what role models you choose in life, and that if anyone were to model any behavior, make sure that that behavior is solely in the vein of loving, kindness, mindfulness, all the pure ingredients that we need to function together as humans. And yeah, that's it. That's all I can say. I think that's a good note for me to leave off onto. So anyway, really good talking to y'all. I look forward to coming to the next one.
Yeah, hopefully, maybe after your class, you can join. You could pop back in here because we may still be here. But thank you for.
Oh, y'all are still going. Yeah, 100%. But anyway, again, really good to see you, 05. I'll be.
Likewise, Miss Helen, would you like to ask a question? Faintly.
Yeah. So
Wait, Miss Helen, can you?
Helen, it's still hard to hear you.
Okay, what about now? Is that better?
Yeah, it's perfect now.
Okay, I guess I had to speak up. First, can we first get a head count on how many white people are in the room besides David? Is there anybody else?
Currently, we only have one person who classifies as white.
And that's David, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
David, I have a question for you. What is your definition for respect? And I mean my line.
David, if you're talking, you're muted. You have to hit the unmute button.
Oh, sorry. Do you say the word respect?
What's your definition for the word respect, David?
I would say it's pretty simple. Treating someone the way you'd like to be treated. And I guess that's relative. But I think in the most purest form, treating somebody the way you'd want to be treated. Yeah.
Ms. Williams, would you like to ask a question? And then Mr. Silent Warrior.
My question was for Brandon, but maybe David can answer it. David, do you practice a religion?
I think I'm well, I'm Jewish. But I'm literally Jewish by blood and by circumcision, I guess. Not not by way of practicing or anything. So I do not practice a religion.
Okay, but you've been circumcised though, so that's a part of their religion, isn't
That is. I would say that was not voluntarily.
it? Okay, sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Okay, so we don't have any white people on the panel that practice a religion.
I believe perhaps Anthony does, but he's no longer with us currently.
Oh, that was Anthony. Okay, well, I'll have to hold my question because my question is around religion. I'll mute my mic.
Is there currently anybody in line with their hand raised?
I am, because I can't raise my hand on my thing for whatever reason.
Oh, okay, no problem.
But you
Go
could
right
go
ahead. Go right
first.
ahead, please. No.
Oh,
You
okay.
please.
The original question, just to go back to that, I think what non-white people can do that white people do to be productive for our societies is I think we can go read. I think we could support each other's businesses. I think we could develop our own communities and stop giving so much money to the ones that already have their, finances set. I feel like that's kind of how they operate, is that they work with each other and they develop their own community. And that's one positive thing that I see, is that if non-white people could do the same in those areas where like before they get their SATs, before they get their ACTs, whatever you call them, depending on what school you go to, they go to the library and they get books so that their children can get a head start on the test. And I haven't really seen too many non-white people doing that. And I think that non-white people could kind of catch up if they just took some notes, just as far as reading and supporting each other's businesses, not no hatred toward each other or anybody, which isn't something that I believe that most white people possess. However, I believe that with the absence of the hatred, because the system of white supremacy has brainwashed so many people, if the non-white communities stopped and said we can't hate each other, we have to support each other, this is the only way that we're going to win. I believe that that would be the best step to take to help solve the problem using their blueprint. Does everyone else hear a phone ringing too? I stopped talking, but everything paused and there's a phone ringing.
Yeah, I heard it.
That was an error on my part. Those with questions, please do so.
I actually want to also apologize. I feel bad that I'm the only white person here, as I feel like I probably would be the least insightful for the questions that have asked.
Hello?
Hello, can I be heard?
Yeah, I can hear you, Helen. But
I can hear you, Helen.
So, David, what did you think of Sandra's response?
Okay, so Sandra is the individual that had just gave the answer to what could non-whites do. I thought that was a fabulous answer. I do think that it's not as easy. I don't think the resources are as easily accessible as white people as the white people have. But I think if there were, very similar circumstances and very similar living situations and really similar help from the community help and, positive reinforcement and assistance, government assistance, I think that would be such a sound thing to do. But I think it more than likely that practice would be more common if everything that I had mentioned was if it was as easy to utilize as it is for white people.
The library is free, but I
Library
think
is free, but you also have libraries, and unfortunately, I guess I'm a pretty visual person. Libraries are free, and I guess nobody should judge a book by their cover. I guess no pun intended. But I feel like in a building that is very appealing, that looks beautiful, with and this is actually me assuming that libraries don't look as good in neighborhoods that don't have much assistance. Okay, this is me assuming, but I guess this is also me trying to figure out why that's not being done in the first place. And my assumption is because of the lack of funding. You're right, Sanja. I agree. I agree with you. That I thought everything that you said was great. I was just giving my input, and I guess it's a little awkward too how it does get a little silent. So I don't know if I'm talking to myself or people are
oh
hearing.
no, we just listen to you talk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're good. You're good.
Try to stick quiet.
No,
The big
I
pause.
honestly, I'm honestly envisioning just a dartboard in everybody's room with me on that dartboard, and so I get kind of nervous because I'm I'm afraid of saying
Are you white or non-white?
I'm white.
No, not David, Sandra.
Oh, I'm mixed. I'm not. I have Black family, white family, Native American. So I'm not actually sure which one I am more than the other. Most people think I look Mexican, but yeah, my mom's Black, my dad's white, basically, and then there's some other stuff in there. So I'm very open to people's perceptions. Like I'm not hating anybody here or thinking, oh, that's a white person, or I just noticed that the library is it's a free place, and that was a good point that he brought up about the buildings not looking as nice, and I have noticed that, and I think that that's a big deterrent of keeping people out. But I think it's very important to understand that the content inside, that the image on the outside might not look as good, and that's part of the game, and that once people or walk in, they'll find that even the exterior not looking so great or being low funded, that the books still have the same information in them to help them succeed and get out of that.
This is Helen again. I'm sorry for my retardation. I am so slow.
Can you get closer to your mic, Helen, please? Would that be possible?
Oh, okay. Wait, what about now? Is this better?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry for my retardation, but Sandra, when I asked you a question, you gave me a very confusing answer. So I'm going to ask something that's going to be more specific. What does it say on your birth certificate under race? That could help me.
To be honest, they actually encouraged to put white because my dad was white, even though my mom is Black. However, I consider myself mixed race because I have a Black parent. I can't just say, well, I'm just the white parent if I, also have the Black parent that raised me.
Okay, so it says on your birth certificate, it says white, correct?
On my birth certificate, it says white.
Yeah.
My mom is Black and my dad is white. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. No further questions at the moment.
I just wanted to acknowledge the people who had their hand raised. I think Carice, you've had your hand raised for a while if you wanted to go.
Thank you. I wanted to ask David a question.
Yeah.
What do you think most white people fear most about non-white people?
So I think the angle that I'm going to try to approach these questions is really trying to like, dig deep into like my own fears. And I think the way I've been talking, I mean, there's obviously been evidence from some of my speech that there's some way that I'm talking that is insensitive. And I don't mean that at all. I am doing my very best. So I think the media has a big influence on everything. I think media is the way that is what is conditioning every single person, is manipulating every single person's thought on what to think about a certain person or being or situation or topic. And of course, how non-whites are perceived in the media. I mean, especially on Fox News. Fox News is I guess all news is pretty bad, but Fox News is the worst. And when you have a majority of evil-like people, watching this kind of stuff, it validates a lot of their beliefs. If you see a crime that's being done by non-white, this is, I've known this all along. This is nothing new for me. And so just this validation with original thought from being conditioned at a younger age, and it being validated like still to this day based on what this news is showing us, that is what keeps like these fears fresh. And that's my answer. Hopefully it sounded okay.
I think Carice's question were what specific things do white people fear about non-white people?
What specific things? Well, I guess I almost thought I answered something similar to that. I was hoping, okay, so specific things. Sorry, I'm just trying to really think. I think getting perhaps the people that are afraid of non-whites are afraid of losing the advantage they already have, and getting to a point where there is a balance or there is equality, where now there's no upper hand advantage. And I think perhaps that's what white people fear the most, is losing their advantage.
Answer.
Huh?
Thank you for the answer.
Oh, no, thank you.
And Mr. David, and if you have other white people around you, feel free to allow them to answer questions. I don't want you to feel like you're in a hot seat. We're just trying to get some truthful answers from a white person. Mr. Jamal, would you like to ask the question? You're muted, Jamal.
There we go. Yeah. Someone had posted in the chat who actually controls the media, and I got caught up on that, and I forgot the other point that I was going. It wasn't necessarily a question. It was more, we're asking David, and we even asked Anthony, are the typical study groups in alignment with, okay, when a white person's there, we should bombard them with questions? I'm just wondering. That's kind of cool, but I'm just wondering if that's typical.
Oh, this is a pretty rare occasion. So it's kind of interesting. Okay. This is the first time that we've had anyone who is classified as white in the meetings.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you kind of came in at an interesting meeting. But yeah.
Nice. Well, I just heard a Neely Fuller piece where he was discussing with a white, non-colored person some of these concepts. So I didn't know how rare it was. I would think it would be rare because, yeah, it's kind of hard to get to these types of substantive discussions. But I wanted to get to the concept of what questions we ask and what we're trying to get to in terms of an answer, because success has a very specific footprint, and the question, and what I appreciate from the little bit I've read of the code, just ordered the books. I've never even read them, just gone off of different discussions and interviews from Neely. But the concepts that I've garnered so far is, okay, well, what are the constructive avenues we want from asking the questions? What's the usage of asking that type of question? What successful white person could do or tell us something that would give us a leg up? And like when I pondered that question, when it was asked to them, my position was, well, that success, that footprint of success is written about all over the place. Everybody is caught up in the disease of racism, right? Of white supremacy. And everybody has their pocket of understanding how, whether they don't think they're affected by racism, or whether they think they're a racist, or whether they think they're totally cured, there is no problem. I so love Neely's approach where he says, well, if I'm not correct, just give me a different answer. We're here to seek solutions, and we're here to come up with solutions to this thing. It's not like there's one perfect answer, but every group in this society is wronged in some type of way. And because of that, justice is not a black thing or a white thing, non-colored, colored, mixed race, non-mixed race. It's just justice. And if we're seeking that, as the code suggests, then understanding that every answer that we get, oh man, like Neely suggests, we have to kind of figure out what code we're living by individually. Success may be a white picket fence and a dog named Spot and 2 kids, and that's success to one person, where having big cash doesn't interest another person. That's success. And just being happy, just being fulfilled, not living where you're fearful of walking down the street could be success to someone who's living in danger and fear. So I just wanted to give those concepts out there and say that success is first to discover what it is you find as success, and there is no right or wrong answer, of course, but also anybody that would give you their definition of what success is and how to attain that gives them power over your concept of what you should be doing for you. If someone's telling you, well, success means being peaceful and loving, and from their perspective, they're 100% correct. You can't fault them. At the same time, does that fit? My brother just got shot, and he was talking to a policeman. How can you be loving in that type of situation? It's so. Yeah, I think I've said most of what I wanted to get out there. It wasn't really a form of a question, more of a statement. But appreciate y'all. Keep sharing.
Thank you. Miss Ash, would you like to ask a question to David?
Yeah, I had 2 questions, but I'll ask the first one. Thanks again, David, for kind of being in the hot seat, but hopefully it's not the hot seat. I was wondering, why do you think white people are so alarmed when Black men and white women have children together?
Okay, I'll answer that. I have to also say that my partner wants to get dinner, and so she's saying don't put it on her, but I have to put it on her. So this will be like the last one I can answer before I have to go. But I really appreciated being part of this. Thank you for letting me do my best to answer questions. So you said, just to clarify, you said why do white people find so alarming about whites and non-whites having children together? Like why do I feel like they're alarmed?
Yes.
That was it. I feel like I'm trying to dig deep into like this very deep, these inner racism roots that are somewhere in.
It may help to think of it as we're not talking about the individual white person, we're talking about on a collective, on a
And that's my issue with projecting. I feel that maybe my feelings, or not my, these aren't my like true feelings, but perhaps something that I think about, I could project onto white people. It is weird because I am technically, I guess, speaking for all the white people. That's what it feels like. So I am trying to like give an answer that would be a general answer.
I don't want you to think that in the question I'm posing, you're speaking for all white people. I just want based on your experiences and your thoughts, like what do you think the reasoning is? And I'm not saying that this is your reason, just what do you think the reason is based on your experiences?
Well, I have my own family is opposed to, mixing of races with children. I think dating is one thing, and I think really the point of them being opposed to same race dating is because the goal is for every relationship to hopefully like lead to offspring. And it's a really good question, and perhaps it's so hard to answer because I don't even know why the heck people would get annoyed with that. It sounds so stupid, and that's why I'm like truly trying to figure out why white people would get annoyed with it.
What do your family members who have an issue with it, what do they generally say?
Well, they say that they're not Jewish. They're not Jewish, and that's like you with anybody that's not white. I mean, it's pretty safe to say like usually if somebody is not white, they're more often not Jewish, especially like if you're in the US. I guess you can have darker skin colors in countries like Israel, but over here it's more of like a non-Jew, but there is racism that is in my family, and the answer could be, well, she's black, and that's just about as much information they're willing to give, where it's like that's it. There's no other reason why it would be wrong. It's just that they're not white. And I'm referring to me dating a non-white. Okay, this is like a response that I am predicting or that I have received when I've mentioned something. And it's because she's not white. You don't want to date somebody that is not white. Why I would respond, I can't even recollect their answer because I don't even think I received one. It's pathetic.
Oh, this entire system is very pathetic. Before you head out, can I ask one final question, David?
Yeah.
And also, if your partner has been listening, she can also chime in. And
she's not near me. She's watching. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the question is, are you ready, willing, and able to teach both white people and non-white people a code of thought, speech, and action for ending white supremacy and replacing white supremacy with justice, balance between people in all areas of activity?
I think that is something I would be very up for doing. I think that justice is very relative, though, but I'm assuming that we're taking it at face value and that your idea and somebody else's idea and my idea of justice and balance are all the same, are all identical, as it's a general term and everybody accepts it. So, I mean, yes, I'd be very willing to be a teacher, but I don't even know what kind of steps I'd have to take. But I think there's also this fear of encountering somebody that does not want to reciprocate, like that does not want to receive this information, and this fear that I'm going to lose friendships or lose connections with people that I could perhaps benefit from just because they don't see things the same way as I do.
Interesting. Thank you for the answer. I want to let you go, but if you have any more time, if anyone wants to ask another question, if he's willing.
Can I just make a quick comment, David?
Yeah.
I'm Nana, just been listening in for this segment. Thank you again for your attendance and for answering the questions. And I just wanted, for the last thing that you said, I just want to make it like on air as well, and specifically to you, is that producing justice is not the norm of today's society, as you may see. That's where there is so much mistreatment. Us here in this group, those who have dedicated our lives to producing justice, are not always the one to be friends with. We come across a lot of people in our lives where we talk about producing justice, and we lost a lot of friendships, so-called friendships, and so-called families, and so-called all these things, correct? But I think one of the important things is that friendship that you're benefiting from the most important thing to do on this planet, or to worry about on this planet, if you will. So let me just finish really quick. So what I'm trying to say is, this one friendship that I'm benefiting from, whether it's maybe some cash or some counseling or et cetera, whatever I'm benefiting from, would not or be even close to producing a system of justice, right? You can't even compare the two, because one just outweighs the other one. So I think when you're thinking about producing justice, it's oftentimes like you can't compare or say like one friendship, or you know what I mean, one friendship or one this or one that would stop you if you truly had the heart to produce justice. And that, again, is balance between all people, eliminating mistreatment. So I think that's something to ponder or think about as you go to your dinner. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I think that was a very great response. I think that, of course, my choice of wanting to preserve a friendship that is incomparable and that enables, that definitely enables somebody's, unright mindset or flawed mindset, is not comparable. Like that preservation of like that relationship is not comparable to justice, like to the big picture. I think my reasoning for doing this or trying to preserve this is obviously it's selfishness. That's what it all comes down to, is self-gain in my mind, where it's like I am more interested in trying to live and have like a decent life where I don't have to worry about a lot of things so much more than I care about the world around me. And it's very selfish, and I hate that I am aware of that. And I think that because I'm aware of that idea, it makes it worse. But
selfish,
I think
okay. You're okay.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. But that's my response, where it's like, you're absolutely right.
Thank you for your honesty, David.
Yeah. No, but thank you guys so much for having me in. I'll definitely click the link next time I get from 05 to look back at the number.
Yeah, please.
0526.
We'll be doing this again, hopefully getting straight to the questions next time. Thank you, David. Have a great dinner.
Thank you.
Maybe after your dinner, if you're still here, pop back in here, but we'll see. Thanks again.
Well, yeah. The missus, the milady. Okay, I gotta go. Bye. Thank you so much, guys. Okay.
Alrighty. Talking to white people. Very, very interesting. Very also interesting that few little white people I was able to rattle for the occasion. Um, Something I noticed is that during this during the Q&A is that white people have a hard time perhaps being truthful to non-white people or perhaps to themselves. I may be confused. Um, Silent Warrior, would you like to comment?
Thank you. I wonder, I have a question. Does anyone else observe amongst the people who say that they're white in this call, a variation between appearing vulnerable when when answering questions about what white people think or do, and a variation between that and being quite assertive about what they will and not do themselves. And then finally, laughter. So I'm observing three things. I'm observing what appears to be vulnerability when speaking about white people or about their own thoughts as a white person. I'm observing assertiveness at times about what they will or will not commit to doing. Like the switch is very strong. And the third thing I'm observing is laughter. Thank you. Does anyone else notice these things, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely picked up on that pattern, and I saw Nana Ya's hand. I thank you, Nana Ya, for that really, really magnificent response to David. It was very pleasant to hear.
Thank you, Silent Warrior, for that observation. And I actually took this time as well to just observe. Next time I will ask questions, but I think one of the things that I've observed through this segment here, or this discussion that we had, is again, just to echo a little bit about what Silent Warrior had mentioned, is the laughter, the feeling of being uncomfortable, the confusion of answers. And I think it just goes to show that producing justice wasn't at the forefront, right? And I think one of the things, thinking about continuing having planned visitations with people who do not identify as non-white, is to continue asking questions, but also ensuring them that this is not a discussion for them to be in the so-called hot seat, or even though it might feel that way, but just ensuring that it's not that. And we're simply here to ask questions. And it's not just to ask questions. I think it should be very particular about how we ask questions, because I think it's sometimes like, as we learned as the white supremacists, as we learned from them, is that you have to be strategic, right? Be strategic, because we want to produce justice, and some things knowing may not produce justice. Some things, we can go on about, like, I lost my train of thought, but thinking just about those questions, I did observe the uncomfortable feelings. And I think, like, one of the things is continuing having these conversations and opportunities to ask white people. But also, I think 0526 had mentioned this in previous meetings, is that when you are, or someone in the group, if I apologize if I got the name wrong, but if you are speaking to someone who is white asking questions, document those questions and share it amongst everyone. And one of the things, I've tried to write down a few things, but it was going so fast. But I think that is just something to reflect on and think back to, because you're not going to get a straight answer right away, especially for someone who's just coming into a meeting and is dominantly non-white. Because I just think of like how non-white people go into a room of white people, that uncomfortable feeling, although it is different for many different reasons, but it might feel that, you know, that someone brought up a question about fear. Yeah, that fear when you go around a Black male, you know. So I think it's just like all of these things that are playing into a person's response, and they can't give a clear answer. Sorry, that was just a lot to say, but I've been observing. Thank you.
One thing that I observed that I thought was interesting was when I asked the question about his family. I feel like his family is very on code, because when they said, you know, like, we don't want you to be with that person, and all their answer was because they're Black or because they're not white. I think that everyone else understands what they're trying to say when they say that without having to explicitly say. So I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of shows how white people are on their own sort of like racist code.
Actually, one other thing, Ash, with that question that you asked, there was an answer prior to, I don't know, with a response, but it was something about how if two people they're in a relationship and they're kind of dating, and then they have an offspring, quote unquote, that's the word that was used. And I think that was our answer. And I think that is what I'm talking about when listening to, like, we're not going to get these clear answers, but that was the answer prior to, I don't know why they would say not to date X, Y, and Z. We got to rewind the recording, because I could almost put something, you know, on, that's what was said prior.
Yeah, really interesting was when just simplest questions like, are you a white person, that was asked by one of the participants that I asked to Anthony. It took a very long time to get an answer for some reason. While I understand he wanted to explain his concept, but very long time to get answers. I heard many things answered that was not asked. And the question about what can non-white people do that the most powerful white people do, that question was not sufficiently asked and had to be rephrased multiple times. So could be practicing racism, white supremacy by withholding constructive information. But I did think it was interesting that David said that we should not, non-white should probably don't want to mimic what the most powerful people are doing. Perhaps that's an indication that what the most powerful people are doing who are white is many incorrect things. But I could be in error. Silent Warrior.
Thank you, 05. I noticed that that the persons who classify themselves as white often seem to not answer the question that was asked, whether it was they were nervous or so, but it seemed to be pretty consistent. Not answer the question that was asked, and when answering a different question, to contradict what they were saying, even in that answer of a question that was not asked. I thought it was a very good set of questions from Helen. Asking a white person what is on their birth certificate, or asking a person what is on their birth certificate. I think that was a very interesting question. I think it's this time that I'm spending here is really well spent. It's very rich with information. I mute my line.
Mr. Dan.
All right. I'd like to comment on the one thing. I did observe a lot of laughing or having a smirk on their face with the one person, Anthony, and I did feel like he was, just showing off on camera, eating organic apples and stuff from Whole Foods. And then this is a question for like 05. I know like in the previous session from last week, I had brought this portion from the 1984 edition of the Word Guide. And I know Kwaku was there when I mentioned this. It's on page 136 of the 1984 edition. Avoid attending any meetings, assemblies, etc. of any kind at which white people are not welcome at all times. Reasons, explanations. The correct purpose of any meeting, assembly, etc. is to reveal truth, promote justice, and promote correctness. White people should be welcome at any meeting, assembly, etc., in which the purpose is to reveal truth, promote justice, and promote correctness. And based off this meeting, I don't know if any of that happened. But yeah, this is in the 1984 edition, and I haven't seen this in the revised expanded edition, so we'll have to pay attention as we go forward and see if this point is presented again. And one question that would have been interesting out of everyone here, if someone would have asked for a compensatory investment request. I don't know, maybe like $20 or something. So yeah, that's what I got.
Well said. And I suspect that many of the questions were not answered honestly, and I do suspect that to be the case as well. Mr. Kwaku, and then Miss Helen.
One thing I observed specifically with Anthony was his answers were all very abstract. None of them were very concrete or really lived in reality. I thought it was very interesting how they both kind of answered the question, especially the question that Mr. Edward asked them. I believe his question was never answered by them. That's kind of the stuff that I was observing. I did observe the kind of the smirking and the laughing as well. I thought that it was constructive in the sense of how white people think, specifically how these white individuals think. I did see a lot of what I've been learning in Urugu and kind of their answers. I saw the one was speaking in the very abstract terms of kindness and peace and whatnot. I had a lot of questions when he was speaking specifically, but I saw everyone else did as well. And the other one was the other white guest was speaking in kind of a vulnerable state, like Silent Warrior mentioned. Very almost. It seems like it's close to like kind of like the liberal sense of trying to relate with us and or relate to non-white people. That's just my assumption, my opinion about it. Yes, so I found some constructive value in it. I would have liked to get to the questions earlier to give them more time. And once the question started heating up, I felt like they kind of wanted to dip out.
Agreed. Definitely will be a part 2 to this questions aspect. Ms. Helen?
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My question is for Jamal. What's your definition of bombarded?
Oh, thank you for the question. Bard, um, subject to a flurry of questions as though they had the answer.
Thank you.
Like, yeah. Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
Welcome. And I actually, if I may, I thought it was, after I got off, I was like, wow, what a great opportunity to have these folks here who typically aren't here to ask the question. So I was running my mouth and took away some of that air that they could have used. Because of course, Anthony left quickly. And then of course, our fellow, I forgot his name, but then he ended up with it. But I also thought it was just really interesting to hear the different responses and some great questions too. I'm muted.
Indeed. I also made an error in not doing the Q&A first. But I've been trained to be a creature of habit. Miss Ass, would you like to chime in?
Oh yeah, I wanted to comment on what Kwaku said about you could see like little moments where things from Yurugu came out. I thought it was interesting when Anthony was asked a question. I think about the most powerful person, the most powerful people, and I think he answered something in the vein of like even the best people who, I guess in his idea, the most powerful people are the people who want to bring humanity, quote unquote, together, or quote unquote, bring humanity together. And so he was saying that the best person, I guess, would be able to, quote, play God and bring humanity together. And that reminded me so much of Yurugu, because it's like, even in the moment of like, you can't think of all people just coming together. It has to be a controlling force that somehow forces, manipulates, or puts everyone together. I thought that was very interesting and reminded me of Yurugu, even though the person is trying to seem, I guess, benevolent, or like Kwaku was saying, liberal. It's the Yurugu or the Asili always comes out.
Definitely. So many Yurugu moments and well-seen moments, I would say. Dan?
One thing I was going to add, speaking of dip out, there's a certain white person on the call that we didn't hear anything from, and that's the white woman. I think she other than getting her introduction, she dipped out. She's like, deuces, I'm not talking to them black people. And then we end the conversation with the white woman. Hey, like, you better wrap that call up with them black people. We want to go to dinner. So, and this is a point too from the 1984 edition on page 133. This would have probably been a good one to use if the white woman had participated. In your general conversations with white people, particularly white women, practice making the following statement and asking the following questions. You are one of the greatest and most fascinating people in the world. And then questions. What is your ultimate objective? What do you think my ultimate objective should be? How do you intend for your ultimate objective to relate to mine? Like, all I'm gonna say is like, hey, the white women, they pretty much controlled this conversation. They dipped out before it started and they wrapped it up.
Agreed. Yeah, to give insight to why that particular white guest left, I was told that the adoption portion was a bit too much, quote unquote, a bit too much for them because they have experienced losing their white child to the adoption forces. So that was the reason I was told that they left. But if they really wanted to share truthful information and help to produce justice, they would have been able to rejoin after that portion. So you're totally correct. It does seem that even behind the scenes, racist woman, they were totally dominating and controlling this conversation. It's really interesting that thanks for pointing that out. Silent Warrior.
Thank you, 05. Today I was thinking, I had the thought that wouldn't it be something earlier today in my reading, I thought, wouldn't it be something if it turns out that the most powerful white person is a white woman? I think the reason why I thought that was usually I am thinking of white men as the most powerful, and they definitely seem to be the most visible. But and then right now my conclusion so far is that it's both white men and white women who are to be considered the most powerful. That way, as a victim, if I think about it in that way, it prepares me for both possibilities, and that's good because there's a lot that I'm confused about. So if I just assume that that they're working together and that they may alternate who's most powerful, then that might be a useful way for me to think about that situation. And some other ideas. Yeah, one thing I'd like to say about white women is that I remember one Dr. Wilson lecture that I listened to where Dr. Wilson reminded us that on the chessboard, you have all of these different pieces. You have 16 pieces per side, and you have the king and the queen. And the king can only move one block at a time, but the queen can move as many blocks as they want to in any direction. Some would say that the queen piece on the chessboard is the most has the most widest range of movement, the most ability to move, most flexible, and that while the game is to checkmate the king, the queen gets to move as much as they want to, and it's probably the most powerful piece. Okay, I'll mute my line.
Yeah. What allows me to understand the role the white woman play in this system is that their immense value and power comes from they're the only creatures on planet Earth that can produce white children. And unless racist man wants their children to be products of rape, they have to be in some sort of agreement with the white woman to keep on the production of white children. So yes, they are very, very powerful and immensely valuable to the system of white supremacy, perhaps even more valuable than white men. Miss Williams?
I agree with you 100% on that. If we look back in slavery, we recognize that white women, trying to talk my headphones on, excuse me. If we look back in slavery, we see the white woman had more slaves even than the white men. She controlled a whole lot of things, but she did it from the background where it looked like it was the white man that was always up front, but it was her. She was the one who had the power. Now, I would suspect that David had already told his wife, now, if I haven't got off at a certain time, come in there and get me out. Find an excuse. And then she tried to say, well, don't blame it on me. I had already planned that. But I would suggest that I'm not saying that they can't lie, because people can lie, but I think it would be more constructive that he would have had those questions, at least 10 of them, so he could have pondered on it. Because when you look at it, and not taking up for him, but I'm just saying, when we're talking about fairness, okay, would either one of us had wanted to be the Black person in the room talking to a group of white people like that? We'd have felt attacked too. We would have felt afraid. We would have felt fear and whatever. So I'm just saying, if we really want to have, now just my suggestion, if we really want to have constructive conversations where they can be open and maybe tell us something that we really don't know or can use, is that give them the questions. What's wrong with them having the questions? He said he was trying to read, listen to some of the videos. Listen to some of Nearly Fuller's videos is not the book, but he did order the book, so he say. So by looking in the book, he will learn and understand some of the reasons why we were asking those questions. But I think we would have had a more constructive conversation with both those white people, well, even the woman too, if that they'd have had the list of questions. Now, when it comes to the couple who said that they had the child who had something happen with adoption, whatever, they are the ones who really should have stayed, because they could have gave us information on how they felt about the system and what it did to them. See, we don't always hear that, them telling us what it does to them. We just know she gave that excuse. But I would have loved to have heard that, because they hear our horror stories about what the system is doing to us. We don't get to hear theirs all the time. So I would have thought that would have been very constructive. But don't ever doubt the power of that white woman. Never. She sits back and she plays very innocent, like she does not do anything. But we know she has her hand in a lot. When the slaves were being beaten, and this woman knows her husband was sleeping with these other slave women and making babies with them. Do you really think she didn't get jealous? She got jealous to the point that she would do anything she can to get that woman extra whooping or something, because she was jealous. That's woman rivalry. Nobody wants somebody else sleeping with their husband. They don't. But he had to justify, well, I got to do it so we can make more slaves, so we can make more money, whatever. But you really think she felt good about that? She didn't. But she sucked it up and she took it because she saw the bigger picture. And then to the point that the white man has given this white woman so much power and backs her up in this power, that even when it comes to her relationship with Black males, they are allowing this. Don't assume that a lot of these white men don't know what their wives and girlfriends are doing. They know. They give them permission. Go out there and have your fling. Some of you just want to sit back and watch them while they do this. But this white woman has more power than we ever would even believe. It's not that the white man don't have power, but she's the one sitting in the back pulling those strings. I mute my mic.
Well said. I'm just gonna comment. I'm open to answer any questions from anyone, honestly. And I wouldn't necessarily feel attacked if I was asked questions by white people, because in the system of white supremacy, I am always under attack. But I totally understand what you're saying, Ms. Williams, and yeah, perhaps we'll make an effort to send the questions prior, and to get a more diverse set of white folks, but I believe they are all trained to function in some sort of hive capacity where most of their thoughts and actions and speech behaviors is going to be pretty similar, no matter how well they think they're hiding it or how truthful they think they're being. Because yeah, many I don't think they were truthful, the majority, or perhaps they are perhaps confused. But if the average white person learns about the system at the age of 13, I don't think they're confused. Um, but yeah, any more Silent Warrior? Would you like to comment?
Thank you, 05. I think I feel this is very fascinating. I think it was a great idea to invite people who classify themselves as white to the meeting. I know that this meeting has a completely different tone. It's much more quiet, much more focused. That's great. About whether to send questions before the meeting or it being unfair that they're being asked the questions now, I think we're collecting data either way. If you're sending them the questions beforehand, then inform us that the questions that have been sent beforehand so we can factor that into our understanding of the system of white supremacy. And if they're being asked the questions immediately, that's also good data as well. It's all good information.
Yeah,
Me myself.
Yeah, I would have hope that them hearing earlier parts of the section would make them more susceptible to being truthful, because I was very intentional with the things I was reading in order for them to feel quote unquote as comfortable as possible. But if Dr. Francis Wilson, the Yugu has taught me anything, is that unless they are in total control of the situation and total control of the domination, I mean of the conversation, there's nothing we can do that can aid their anxiety, because their anxiety is resulting from them not being in control of the conversation. Because when you're asking the questions, you are in control. When you're answering the questions, you are not in control. So I believe the anxiety could have just came from their whiteness, their Yurugu, and not the questions themselves, or a combination of the two. If we understand alienation and anxiety aspect of their being. Yeah. What else was yeah, and from my experiences with Mr. Anthony, very very interesting character. I hope we can bring him get him back here next week, so we could perhaps get some more concise answers. Maybe that'll be something we can mention, that let's try to have our answers be as concise as possible, because the best example was when I asked a simple question, are you a white person? And we were met with so many words, to say the least, so many words that a simple yes or no could have answered. But I do appreciate what Silent Warrior mentioned, how it's data. Nonetheless, it's an opportunity to observe white people and their thinking and their word usage, and it just really validates a lot of the stuff that I am reading. We have read, I believe. Think we, let me see. But I think we could yeah, perhaps we could get into closing comments. Would anyone like to start with closing comments?
Yeah, I'll start.
Then we'll decide the next pages.
Wait, who else spoke at the same time?
Go ahead, Sandra.
Oh, okay. See, for closing comments, I thought that listening to
I see
wait.
That Sandra is talking, but I can't hear her.
Ooh, you can't hear me?
Others hear Sandra?
I can hear Sandra.
All right, I
can
see
hear
everyone
Sandra.
talking, but I can't hear anyone, but I see the thing moving. So it's something on my end. Let me just try to correct this issue really. I know, but I can't.
No.
Okay, now I can hear again.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as the chapter, I think that this was a very great learning experience for me. I definitely was interested about, you know, the, how do you say it, the questions about, what was the question? Hold on, let me try to word it right. It was the question about why it is that white people see a problem with people mixing the race, and I thought it was very interesting to listen to the answer of that, to try and understand, you know, how do outsiders see this and respond to this. When I say outsiders, I don't mean I just mean people that we don't know. There's no classification or anything. That's just people that we don't know, just new people, new commentary on this. I also wanted to kind of explain where I was coming from a tiny bit on one of the areas that I paused. The reason why I paused about the birth certificate is because I actually asked a question about my birth certificate when I got older, and I saw my mom, and I saw my dad, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and people kept telling me that, you know, why are you listed like that on your birth certificate? Shouldn't you have, you know, if you have white, shouldn't you have black? Shouldn't, you know, Native American be listed? And the hospital actually convinced, you know, my family to leave that off for some reason, you know, and this reason is very clear along with this book club, that, you know, there's really in the system. I mean, I grew up not really knowing exactly what I was. People always asked me what I was, and all I knew was there's so many things in my family. I'm confused, and they wanted me classified on my birth certificate as white, even though, you know, most people would say mixed race. So I thought that was very interesting because I stopped and thought about, oh, you know, why is that? Why is that, you know, but now, since being in this book club and having, you know, these conversations and reading this literature, I begin to understand why you know, that race is more powerful, and why, you know, things happen like that are confusing. You know, where, you know, what am I? What is it? You know, I'm not. I know that, you know. But anyway, it was one of those moments where I thought, oh wow, this is like, you know, this is another like light bulb moment. Right? But anyway, I thought it was very interesting to have different people with different views to see how they think and to see how they comprehend the same material that we read, because I think that that's very important to solving the problem of racism, white supremacy, is to see how white people and non-white people think when reading this literature, so that we can figure out, okay, well, how lost are people? How, you know, how are they taking this? How much are they willing to share? How comfortable are they with what's going on? You know, I think it's very enlightening, and I look forward to having more constructive conversations like this again, going over these questions and just seeing the difference in opinion from person to person, and the difference in the way that people see things. Another thing that I found interesting when, and I can't, his name is gone. I think it started with a D. I'm bad at remembering names the first time, but anyway, one of the things I thought was interesting was when I had mentioned the library, the one of the guys that was, I can't remember the name, I apologize, but
you can say the white guest.
mentioned that huh?
You can just say one of the white guests.
Okay, one of the white guests mentioned that he thought that the buildings were more dingy, but he didn't know. And I mean, obviously, you know, that's an observation that he's probably made, that, I mean, most people have made when, okay, you know, there's books in this building and there's books in that one, and for some reason the building doesn't look as appealing, you know, in the other community. So I think it was interesting where, you know, there's things that are just obvious truths that are in front of the faces of the, you know, American people. And there's no real way to, you know, I think, I mean, if you've lived for as long as you have and you're making a statement, I mean, to me, it's, you know, that you just don't want to admit that because maybe you feel that you're, you know, partially responsible for that, or that you're not doing much to stop that. But I definitely thought it was learning experience, and I look forward to learning more and reading more things like this. And that'll be it for me.
And then just to close off for myself, just thinking about, first I want to thank everyone here for this discussion. And then also, I really, I don't want to say, I learned a lot. There you go. I learned a lot from this discussion here today, just because I'm thinking about like how to interact with those who classify as white, and also the idea of asking questions, which I find very important. And I've been really thinking about this lately with the last couple of days. It's like really understanding the importance of questions and the importance of words. So really being able to decode words and understand what words are. And also just want to put this on air, it's like the idea of with Mr. Williams, Edward, his question and the way he followed up with his question. And I think that is very good to do. And I think for next time we'd have a discussion that we have time for that person who asked a question to follow up, because oftentimes, as we have learned today, that you don't get a straight answer. So maybe there was either confusion. So possibly instead of like just continuing rephrasing the question, maybe asking them like what part of it did you not understand, or also when they provide answers, following up on the answer they have given instead of switching to a different question. Because I think like sometimes it's not enough time spent on the question, because I know even when I answer questions, I might not give a response right away because I'm trying to think on my feet, but enjoying the pause. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
For my closing comment, I found the questions talking to white people to be very to have some constructive value. I believe it has constructive value because not many times I myself have had the opportunity to ask white people questions, especially after practicing codification. Not too sure whether or not it's completely constructive to always have them here and asking them questions, because we're still learning, right? So I would definitely be open to asking some of my previous white associates if they would be interested in attending to ask them questions as well. But I thought that this was definitely good practice for this specific area of people relations. So yeah, thank you everybody for the discussion tonight. That's it from me.
Yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate anyone attempting to get more white guests, because that may be the one thing that can make them feel comfortable if there's more of them than us in here. For my closing comment, I think Ray's suggestion was excellent. More follow up questions, and there just more of even if we are changing the question, just informing them that we don't think our question was answered, and giving them an opportunity to help us in our confusion or move forward if they refuse to do so. But just letting them know that we don't believe our question was answered could go a long way, I believe. And yeah, just an opportunity to ask white people questions is really really constructive, because they really get to show you better than we can tell. Because yeah, in my confusion, I would have seen some of the white guests as so-called good whites, but as I saw the mental gymnastics, I'm now aware that how confused my thinking was in the past. Um, yeah, that's my closing comment.
I can go next. I would just say that I appreciated like this meeting. I think I learned a lot from it, and I'm interested in watching it over again, because I think I'm going to learn more from watching it and not like actually being in it. That's all I have to say pretty much. Yeah.
My closing comments is this was a very interesting meeting. I'm kind of disappointed that we had more questions and I guess it wasn't fully answered as much as we could spare the time. What it taught me is that all the white people probably felt under attack, but probably just wasn't prepared to be on code, or didn't expect or knew what they fully was walking into. But I'm glad that we all stayed on code and that we practiced code. But yeah, like Ash said, I want to look at this meeting again. We'll go through video and see all the things that was. I felt like my answer was my question was answered, but I felt like everything else was just like involved circle of answers. So I'm just glad to still be learning.
Thank you, Ms. Crease. I am in accordance with you. I am also a bit upset in the few numbers of questions we were able to ask. Closing comments, anyone?
May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it's 3 in the morning where I am. So I actually woke up. I fell asleep waiting for the meeting to start, but thankfully I woke up and was able to join. So what I like to do is share some of the thoughts I had about some of the texts that I didn't get to share in the hour or so while the meeting was happening when I wasn't here. First of all, I would like to say that I think it's not something that I would do, to assume what someone else, especially a white person, is thinking or feeling in a situation like what we have here. Because, you know, if you take, for example, Dr. Welton's theory of color confrontation, and that whites is a collective fear of genetic annihilation, that's something that we have no idea what feels like, subconsciously or even consciously. We have no idea. Non-white people, Black people especially, have no idea what it feels like to know that if you have sex with the wrong person, the child will look nothing like you. So if taking the logic further from that, if I don't know what it's like to really, if I can verbalize, I can repeat what white people have said, I can read the symbols in the culture, but I still don't know what it feels like in the body to have that fear, in that visceral fear, then I think I will not assume what someone else, especially a white person, is feeling when placed in a situation like we had here. They're being asked questions. They could be smiling or laughing because they're nervous, or because they're well trained and know from birth that they're Superman, or they're Tarzan and we're just the natives. So I you know, they are not. I mean, which white person is seen on television year after year killings of white males for holding a phone? I mean, the amount of terrorism that Black people are facing, and it's being like publicized around the world. You don't even have to be in America. Everybody knows what's happening to Black people in America. So my point is, like, I am not going to feel. I mean, it's very good. One thing I have learned, and I will practice in my code, is to make an effort to be polite, to say thank you for answering the question, to say the name. I will now add that to my code where I will be more polite, because white people are people, of course. But at the same time, it's like we're in a system of racism that's been going on for hundreds of years, that's been refined yearly, that's being refined in a major way right now. So I got questions, and I hope you can give some answers, white person. And any answer you give, I will get and operate on. All right, moving forward. The questions in page 220, this will be real quick, 05. To what extent will you serve as a white sacrifice? I'd like to relay that a white person that I was in an intimate relationship with told me that, okay, I might end up having non-white children, but I will still be white. This is what a white person said to me about producing non-white children, that they would still be white. I thought there was some, even though we didn't ask many questions, a lot of the questions were really good, especially this one about what are the things that the smartest and most powerful white people, what are the things that the smartest and most powerful white people do that non-white people should do, and how should they do it in all areas of activity. And one question that I wish that we asked was, asking a white person if they have told any jokes to or about non-white people that were insulting or derogatory. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeez. Miss Williams?
my close is that this part of the chapter was very enlightful to the point that I've learned a lot from it. So it was very interesting reading, although I had to laugh a few times with it. And I want to say that we can always judge people on laughter because I laugh a lot too, but that doesn't mean that I'm not serious. It doesn't mean that, so I wouldn't judge a person on them laughing, but I typed something in the chat and I said this, that you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. When you want people, now this is just my observation, when you want people to have a conversation, this is a very hard conversation, whether we want to believe it or not, this is very hard. So the people that decided they want to participate, the white people, they had no idea what they really were gonna face with us. They had no idea. So it was like an attack to me. And I'm not taking up on, but I'm just saying I wouldn't want someone to have done me that way. So that's the reason why I said that if we go back and we look at when we see people on a panel being interviewed, most of those people have those questions beforehand. Not all of them, but most of them do. And that's the reason why the conversation goes so smoothly. But people have to have a level of comfort to feel they can open up to you. They're just not going to open up to you. They don't really know you like that. And we got all this panel of Black people and only a few white people. And we want to ask them all of these invasive questions. And we want them to just be 100% honest and tell us. But it's a comfort level that has to be built first, where they feel like they can be open and honest without our personal attacks. I'm not saying anybody personally attacked anybody. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying that David stayed the longest. But they were like little popcorn. They were just popping all over the place, popping out, popping in. And for the co-host to have left, that was uncalled for because he was the co-host. You made him the co-host. If anybody should have stayed, it was him. But because I'm assuming the topic was just too hot. It was just too hot. And so what people do, and we've learned this, what is it? Fight, flight, and flee, or whatever, how they go, but them three things there. They're going to do one of the three. So if we decide to do this again, maybe we can work on not the question Mr. Williams asked, he didn't ask it in a kind of strange tone. It was a perfect question, but by the time he asked that question, he had already got on guard. You know what I'm saying? So when that question came, he said, "Oh no, I got to get out of here." But I'm just saying that we got to get people where they feel they're comfortable enough to have these conversations, because this is a very hard conversation to be having. And I applaud them. I really do applaud them for even showing up, just showing up, because a lot of white people wouldn't have shown up. I remember Dr. Sam Q had asked some questions to white people from a video he did, and people left little messages, but he asked, I need somebody to answer these questions. You can come on screen or you can write it in the chat. Do you not know a year later, he went back and he was writing in the chat, nobody still has said anything. So we have to give these three white people credit for showing up. If nothing else, we may not got a whole lot out of them, but they showed up. So because they showed up, they're telling us 10 chances to 1, we might can get them to show up again, but we're gonna have to be a little less attack mode with them to get them to open up more, because once they feel comfortable, they will open up. Now, a lot of people say people only open up when they're drinking alcohol or doing drugs, but I think there are some people don't have to have all that. And especially, I can't say 100% surety that they want to produce justice, but for them showing up, it shows they do have an interest. Thank you.
Mm. May well be. I believe they could have shown up due to their association and perhaps affection towards me, but I may be in error. But I will share with you the script that I sent them, that I sent to all the white people, and it's too long to fit in this chat, but I will send it posted in the WhatsApp.
Okay, thanks.
Jamal and Still Learning, would you guys like to give closing comments? I don't know if y'all have went.
I didn't. I ended up getting. I ended up dropping out for some reason for a moment, so I missed a little bit. I was gonna thank everybody for sharing. I really appreciate the moderation by you five and just everybody's questions. Everybody seemed really thoughtful and patient with David and Anthony, I think it was. Just this whole reason for getting together behind the code, I think, is fascinating. And my book should be coming soon. So I'm really looking forward to being able to be up to speed with certain things. But I also wondered, I don't know if we have time to answer it, but just like, what is our goal or what are we trying to accomplish in questioning these white folks? And I'm almost rhetorical because the spook who sat by the door is a fantastic illustration of how if we seriously consider ourselves needing data, we can get that, right? Like if we seriously feel like, okay, we would benefit by learning this white supreme individual understanding of how to succeed. If we really need to get that, we place a couple of spooks by the door and they go and figure that information out and bring it to us. Still, I forgot your name, Stillness. Well, one of the brothers was saying that his association brought him the knowledge that the reason they particularly feel a certain way, and that's kind of the point. You know, he brings the knowledge that he gathered from his resource. We all have resources. You know, some of us have white friends that we could talk to, and if we seriously have a set of questions, you know, we could throw it out to each other if we're serious about getting certain questions answered. Like, so I mean, if that's our goal, I love this compensatory code concept. If we're striving for a specific goal, what is that goal? What benefit striving for that goal will give us? How do we accomplish whatever that goal is? And maybe there's a better way than us not necessarily bombarding, but you know, it could feel like attacking. That I think that's
Can I respond?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Oh, the only thing I wanted to say was, well, for me, it personally is helpful to be able to practice staying in question mode and asking questions with other people who are in the group that like I'm learning the code with as well, because then we're able to like, I guess, because I have conversations, but it's hard for me to stay on code. And I think it's a lot easier when I have, it's like almost like people here are keeping me, I don't want to use the word accountable, but I'm able to at least like be mindful of what I'm saying when I'm around other people who are also aware of the code. And also, like, I do want to just state that, like, we as non-white people are often like trained to be hypersensitive to like white people in terms of like almost seeing them as like victims. And so I don't, if I feel like if I just don't want us to think that them, like, because I know that O5 gave them a specific prompt, so they knew what they were here for. And I think that we're spending a lot of time kind of like thinking about their feelings, when I think that, you know, like they came knowing what was going to happen. And I think we're kind of trained to do this. And I think maybe there are better ways to go about it, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm stating what I'm saying well. But yeah.
I understood that well. I guess I dropped out, but I thank you for clarifying that a little bit, because I know that I definitely would like to understand what they're thinking. I don't think that us caring about any human's plight is victimizing or slighting anyone else's feelings of I mean, for me, the code explains very well that the system is all around us, right? And if it is all around us, we all are affected. Like, I don't think there's anyone immune to what this silliness is called racism. And it's not really that silly. People have described it as being perfected. Not everybody's aware of how it's perfect, but they practice it anyway, because the little pieces that they get, they act upon and they propagate. So yeah, I definitely would like to get the copy if Brother 05 could share that. But I didn't want to take up any more time too. I appreciate everybody and have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Yeah, and to answer the other question, the goal everyone in this group should have is producing justice. And one of the ways to go about that goals is to stop white people from practicing deceit and withholding constructive information. So that is the goal, and this is one approach we attempted to take. Yes, Mr. Jamal?
Yeah. Do you think that every encounter with a non-colored person should be directly confronting them with that? Is that the code, or is that what we try and do?
No, it would not be constructive to interact with every white person immediately talking about the race problem, but this particular discussion was designed to do such that to talk about justice and to have a truthful conversation about racism, white supremacy involving white people.
In the group, is that what you're describing? That's how we approach a white person in the group typically? I can't wait to get the book because maybe it's explained there.
Say again?
Is this approach to confronting white folk part of what the code suggests or recommends as part of the group?
What the code suggests is on page, I will read it again, but I would hope we were all trying to practice this portion. I know I was, but the code states, when talking to any people, including suspected white supremacists, racists, do not be harsh, vulgar, or mean-spirited. Be businesslike, cordial, courteous, and pleasant in manner. I believe we were all doing this. I may be in error, but I am also a victim and severely retarded due to the system, so I may be incorrect. Does that make sense, Jamal?
It certainly makes sense. I wonder where a retarded label would come from. I appreciate everyone's perspective, even if we have damages. Yeah, I appreciate what you said and don't think there was error. And I remember when you read it the first time, I didn't hear anyone not going by that level of respect and regard for anyone being questioned. And like I said, I don't think we were necessarily throwing out vinegar either. I don't believe I don't believe there was a major attack going on. It was interesting that we specifically were trying to get answers from individuals who clearly have a better inkling than we about what whiteness is about. But like I was trying to say before I left the meeting, if we really want answers or data, then us going on missions to collect that data, I'll bet you would be more constructive than when we invite a white person to a group meeting, us throwing our questions at them. Not that we can't do it, I could be wrong in that sense, because, perhaps that's one of the best ways. But in my evaluations and experiences, it doesn't bode well for the dynamic, because it's not a way of building trust. It's more of a, well, if we see the two of them again, then we'll see. And, you know, that would be the proof as to whether it's a helpful thing or not. But I appreciate the back and forth.
Yeah, and also another reason for them being here was there's this section just has this section is evolving questioning white people, and it just made sense to have white people to ask these questions, because there's about over 50 questions in this section that we read, so it made more sense to ask real white people these questions than for us to just discuss these questions amongst ourselves.
Nice. I didn't realize that it was tied to the specific chapter we were covering.
Yeah. No problem.
I look forward to our next discussion. Sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to. I just thought that would maybe give you some clarity to share that.
I'll go. My closing comments or remarks. I would say, don't forget, like white women, they were controlling this whole conversation, because I mean, the one she dipped out and we completely forgot about her. I just want to keep that reminder out there. Just, and the other one, she wrapped up the conversation when Ash answered or asked that one question in regards to black male, white woman, tragic arrangements. Whole thing got wrapped up. And yeah, white people, they can show you better than I can tell you. And one other thing, we should have questions prepared like next time, or more questions prepared. Because I know one question I would like to get in or see someone get in is a compensatory investment request. So you get some information and you might get something to help you out.
Indeed, I will be asking Anthony for a compensatory investment for sure, whether on the air or off the air. Dr. Senq, your hand raised.
Yeah, you know, I came in late. I had some business to take care of, and man, I just want to make sure I got this correct. Did I miss the white people? There was some white people in here tonight. Y'all was questioning.
Unfortunately, yes, you did miss them, but yeah, we will try to get more white participants in the future.
Oh yeah. Yes, sir. Okay. That's all I wanted to make sure because I came in on a tail end.
Very, very tail end. Still learning. Would you like to share us a closing comment?
It's still me.
Okay. I was suspecting that you were sliding silent warrior due to this. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Is somebody in the group named Still Learning?
Yeah, I think it's yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, well, if there's no more comments, I guess we could that is it. Very, very constructive conversation despite its hiccups. I do hope to see you again, Mr. Jamal. That you definitely came with some insightful information, and it would be great to get as many people practicing code, attempting code, and sharing code. So great seeing you here. I think you maybe have been one of the 5 people who said they were coming through the Facebook that Mr. Silent Warrior had put up there. But yeah. So thanks for your participation. I thank everyone for their participation and their feeling that this is of constructive value. So that would be all. Gonna end it here.